McCarthyism was a political tactic used by Senator Joseph McCarthy in the early years of the Cold War, which was a period of great geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. It lasted from 1946 until the USSR's collapse in 1991. America was an extremely powerful capitalist democracy, while the Soviet Union was an extremely powerful communist state. The United States feared that the Soviet Union would spread its ideology throughout the world. During this time, Americans became increasingly paranoid of communism infiltrating the government. This was known as the Red Scare. Senator Joseph McCarthy gained notoriety for investigating and accusing various government officials of being communists, usually with little to no evidence to substantiate his claims.
Communism had a meteoric rise post-World War II. They had won China's Civil War. The Soviets tested their first bomb. The senator's goal was to halt Soviet influence at any cost.
McCarthy gained a massive audience for his false claims when print and broadcast media began running stories on his accusations. The press showed little accountability for McCarthy. They allowed his crusade to continue without resistance.
Press had to cover him because he was creating news. So the more they covered him, the more people paid attention. And the more people paid attention, the more followers he gained.
When journalists did call up McCarthy, he would often call them out by name at political rallies and speeches. Meanwhile, in the sphere of journalism, a dramatic change was being made in the process of newsmaking. The press started adjusting to the principles established by the Commission on the Freedom of the Press. The commission met in 1947 and made this critique of the press, quote, "The few who are able to use the machinery of the press as an instrument of mass communication have not provided a service adequate to the needs of society." Journalism was at a crossroads. It needed to change its ways or face a loss of control or regulation. According to Edwin R. Bailey, it was journalism's adherence to objectivity that hurt its content. Editorial opinion and interpretive analysis were left out of news, meaning McCarthy's accusations were written closely to fact. In the case of McCarthy, one of the first to provide the full story was television journalist Edward R. Murrow on his series See It Now. Murrow and his associate Fred Friendly provided some of the first mainstream criticism on McCarthy's tactics.
The actions of the junior senator from Wisconsin have caused alarm and dismay amongst our allies abroad and given considerable comfort to our enemies. And whose fault is that? Not really his. He didn't create this situation of fear, he merely exploited it.
Murrow highlighted the flaws in McCarthy's statements and helped Americans think critically about the situation. It led to widespread criticism of McCarthy and his accusations. At the 1954 Army McCarthy hearings, Senator McCarthy lost his credibility and was eventually censured by the Senate. The shift in coverage on McCarthy was one of the first major events that suggested journalism was gaining its integrity and moving closer to providing the full story in its reporting.